All right, we're back. It's COMP2068, Advanced Web Programming, and it's week 11, lesson 11, part 1 of our broadcast. By now, you guys should be crazy and sick of that Flatlander song, right? Because we've... was that?
I just skipped it the whole time.
You skipped it the whole time? Some people skipped it. That's okay. I know people. Some people in other sections I've done this with. They're like, they come in and they're singing it, right? And I'm like, please don't sing it anymore, right? It's too much. Right? So the the little thing that we had, that little lab we had, was due last night. I've got this assignment number 3 that I'm going to put out. It's worth 10% of your final mark, right? But it's just an add-on to your portfolio, right? So what it is, it's just the Angular piece. We did, if you've done your Angular training, right, with Code School, then what we're going to do with this one is we're going to add on, a to-do list. We'll talk about what a to-do list is, a task list, basically, that you could add in that secure area you built, right? You built a secure area for your portfolio. It'll be another secure area, another place where users can't get to or access unless you're logged in, right? So it's going to build upon what you've already done, so you don't have to put, create new authentication or any of that stuff. That's why we built the authentication piece first. Excuse me, and this piece is second. This actually gives you something to authenticate, right? Not just a user, a list of contacts, right? Hindsight being what it is, it would have been nice to include this as a kind of almost like kind of a bigger assignment that kind of does both, a little bit of authentication and but I've broken it out into 2 parts only because I found in past iterations that it was too hard to do both at once. So I kind of broke authentication and the Angular pieces apart. Now, technically, I should have probably given you this last week, but the problem with it is that we're about a week behind now because of, there's a bit of a lag. I wanted to give you an extra week to pick up authentication. And probably if we had managed things differently with Express, the whole Express CRUD experience, giving you an extra week of Express, I probably would have maybe shifted the course just a little bit. And I think, part of the rebalancing would have given you an extra week. Now, it's totally doable, this one. And the reason why is because I'm going to give you most of the code today to do it. It's not about you figuring out the code for doing this. It's about you integrating this into your own site. That's what this project is all about, right? So it's not like you're going to start off with nothing. So I'm not going to tell you it's going to be hard. I'm going to go over the code today. We're going to go over how do I connect Express with Angular, right? That's the biggest problem. Again, I know Anthony was saying that, right? He's saying, how do I connect these 2 together? You show me Angular, we've seen Express, Angular and Express. How do we do that together, right? So we're going to do some of that today as we start off. And most of it's going to be, I'm going to show you the completed, kind of a completed version of the one I did. Remember I did that one that just showed user list? I'll show you another one that I built that I have a user list plus I have a to-do list. Now mine's more complex than the one that I'm asking you to build. As always, I always try and go to the next level to show you additional opportunities for to build components, right? But we'll go over that today. So what are you building? So you're going to build this to-do list. Probably the best thing to do is probably bring it up. So I've got I'll show you the to-do list we're going to build today here with this thing. So bring this up here. So first I'll kick off my my Mongo server. So there's MongoDB, and then I'll start off the app, right? So we'll do NodeMon, and then I'll go into that to-do list app that I have, and it'll be almost exactly what we saw last time. Remember the authorization app that I had before? Almost exactly the same. So localhost 3000, you get this, right? This is what you normally see, right? And then when we log in, right? I'll just put in my username and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Really complex. I get this. I get a couple of users, right? As an example, right? And then I also notice that suddenly now I have a to-do list available to me, right? Which it wasn't available before, right? It's kind of added on to my nav bar, which is probably what you should do when you log in. your nav bar should show an additional navigation link, right, that you didn't have before because it shouldn't be available. Now, smart users, or if you've already been there, you're going to try and, some people will try and go there again. Notice if I hover over it, my link says to-do list on the bottom right, right? So if I click onto it, I get one to-do, which is kind of a task list. Let me just make this a little bit smaller for you guys so we can fit it in. So my to-do list is just basically this task list. This is all Angular front end, right? I mean, it says one to-do of one remaining, okay? So I've got my to-do, and I add a new to-do in. So I say, talk about AngularJS, right? And then I create it, and then there it is, right? And it's instantly there. That's the two-way data binding trick of Angular. So I added it into the database. Let's go into database for a second to see what that looks like. So if I go Mongo, and if I go to show DBS, so show databases, I can see that my user DB is the one that I used before. So I'm going to kind of use user DB, right? And then if I show collections, now I have two collections. I have a to-dos collection and a user info collection, right? And if I go to my to-dos collection, I go db.todos, right, .find, and then .pretty. Then I have a bunch of them, right? So not just for my to-dos, but also a couple other people. So in the same to-do list, I've got a couple of to-dos that this other guy, Aaron, kind of put together, right? And here's my two. Here's a new to-do. And then here is, this one here is talk about AngularJS. I just added that in there, right? So, but it appeared here instantly, two-way data binding, right? That's how Angular works, right? So notice that I don't see Aaron's to-dos, even though they're inside the same collection, right? I filtered it. I've been able to go through and filter it. Now you don't have to do that, right? This is extra. This is your bonus points. If you know, I'm showing you opportunities for bonuses if you wanted to go there, right? So by the way, this Angular to-do, when we finish putting it up, I won't put it up this week. I'll put it up next week for you. My version of it, I'll put all the entire code and everything up. So guys, if you guys want to use any of it for your final assignment, you'll feel free to nab it, you know, and to steal whatever you have to do, right? Because this is an example of a working Angular front end Express backend, right, that you guys can use. So, and I wanted to give you that we worked in class so you understand the workings of it. So that's part of it. So part of it is I added to do, and if I click on the checkbox, right, it kind of crosses it out. That's a bit of CSS. That's all that is, right? So it shows it crossed out but this actually updates the database. Let me show you what that does. Notice how here it says completed is false. If I update it again, if I do to-dos find pretty, notice now that here is a new to-do, that completed is true, right? So even when I click that button, that checkbox, it shows completed in the database. Now I could filter it if I wanted to. I could filter this list. I can make it filter to not show the completed ones if I want to. Some kind of toggle filter option that filters it off, and you can use Angular filtering to do that. But I didn't do it in this app. So that's one. The other thing is if I click this button, this is my little edit button. So this is Font Awesome little icon. If I click onto it, I can do that. And it'll show me these, like an instant way of removing the to-do, right? So let's say I've completed it, now I can remove it, or I can update the actual short description of it. So remove it, it's gone, right? And if I go back to the database, and again, this is, so again, instant, you know, you notice now that there's no more of that to do, right? It's gone from the database. So it's, again, that two-way data binding shows you an instant update, live view of what's going on. Also notice there's one to-do of one remaining. I add another one. So let's say here's another to-do. Oh, I don't know. Take the wife out for dinner. How about that? Because I think we need to do that. It's about time, right? Maybe dinner and a movie. We'll see James Bond, right? So let's just say, you know, I'm a little bit late on seeing this kind of stuff, right? So create. So there's my to-do, right? Now notice I have two to-dos of two remaining. If I cross one out, talk about AngularJS, which is what we're doing right now, notice how it goes one to-do of two remaining, right? I can also uncheck this again, right? And it'll go back to two to-dos of two remaining. So it's, again, instant two-way data binding, right? Kind of stuff that's going on here. If I click this button, talk about AngularJS, and I go into update, it takes me to my to-dos, my details view, all right? Which is another view altogether, right? So if I go to update, do that again. What I meant is, with this view, if I want to add in additional stuff, right? And see how it shows the complete? This is actually another view that I have in here. Complete, talk about AngularJS and blah, blah, right? But I can actually go into, if I want to, I can go into like another view where I can see my completed view, which I don't have here. That's one thing I didn't show you guys. It's actually built, but I can update just this view right here, right? I don't have another button that takes me to my my details view, right? And for me to do that, I'd have to select the to-do, right? For me to do that, notice on the top here I have a to-do list with a pound and a slash, right? In order for me to update this, I have to do it with a specific to-do. I don't have a button for that yet. I can do all my updating here in this one little view, right? But what I'd like to try and do is build once when I click update, instead of updating it here, or maybe another one, further edit, something else, that'll take me to that other view. I have the view, I just haven't built it in. So that's really what a to-do list is. Let's go back to your document. So again, here it is. So a list of any current to-dos displayed in tabular format. Notice I didn't say count the to-dos, right? Because that's a bonus, right? How do I count the to-dos? Each to-do should include a checkbox to indicate whether it has been completed or not. When a to-do is completed, it should be crossed out, right? And also, it should be removed. It should actually be, noted in the database, which is probably something I should add in. But I'll leave that to you. Each to-do should include an edit button that will link the user to do details view. That's different than my to-do. What I'm showing you here and what this is slightly different because I got to give you something to do, right? No pun intended. The application database will contain a to-dos collection, and the single document in the collection will include the to-do name, which is a string, a completed field, which is Boolean, and notes, which is also a string, and other relevant information. For example, when it was updated, anything else you want to add in there. If the user is authenticated, he may access the to-do list via a link on the nav bar. That's going to pop up when you log in, right? And then your to-do details view should include the following components for functionality, right? The to-do details view will include a form where the user can update the selected to-do, and the to-do name or short description should appear in this view. Include a notes field or a long description of your to-do. So let's say another little notes field that you can add in some more details about what this task is about, right? And then include some buttons, an update button, a delete button, and a cancel button at the bottom of your form that basically allow you to do, if you update, it'll update the the actual to-do, the task, and take you back to the list view. If you click delete, then it'll delete the task and then take you back to list view. And if you push cancel, it'll ignore any changes and take you back to list view, right? That's what it does. That's it, right? So it's just making a to-do list. By the way, there's tons and tons and tons of examples online of how to do an Angular to-do that you can find everywhere. That's not the challenge. The challenge is, how do I tie Angular to Express? That's the challenge, and I'm going to talk about that today. Okay? So again, for 10%, the rest is pretty much everything we've seen before. A couple of optional site features. A count of your to-dos and your to-do list view for 2 bonus marks, nice and easy. And make the to-do list view and to-do details view part of a single page using Angular templating, which is something that you should have seen some of already, right, in your code school video. Questions around assignment 3. It's due next week, Wednesday by midnight, but it's a short one. So if you get started on it early, it'll actually probably help you with your understanding your final project as well, if you're going to use Angular in your final project for that extra bonus mark, because bonus marks related to using Angular for your final project, right? I'm trying to give you as many bonus marks opportunities as possible, right? So this will help you with that. Okay, it's up on Blackboard again. Take a look at the document due December 2nd at the same time as your concept, as an example, and your kind of your I want your site structure and your concept. That's due next week around the same time. So when we come in on next week on the Thursday, remember there is no more teaching after today. Today is the last teaching day. And I know what's going to happen. Like I said last week, no one's going to show up. I'm surprised, half the class wasn't here earlier. More people are here now, right? But I suspect that people aren't going to be here at all. Please don't do that. Next week is a critical week for us because I want to take a look at your recommendations. This is what I want to do. This is my concept, right? So it'll give us a chance to sit down. Now, for those people who are doing a custom site, maybe we can take a look at that today to see where you're at during the break. I want to kind of take a look and give you some critique. And I'd asked for that. I asked for last week. I said, if you're doing something custom, please let's talk about it today. Don't wait till next week, because next week will be maybe too late, right? So, but remember, next week, your first piece of your final project is due on the Wednesday, right? So make sure you get that out as well as this one. Now, the first piece of your final project is something you should be doing with your partner, right? And that's a concept. Your first piece of your external document, your site structure. That's what I want to see, right? So it's not like a lot in terms of getting that done, but it's enough that it'll give you a full week of work from now until next week. So it's gonna be a busy week for you guys, for me, which I apologize for in advance. Any questions around assignment 3? All right. So again, it's just something to test your Angular. Giving you code school, and you did code school in a bit of a lab. It's not really a good test of your Angular skills, right? So I want you to understand Angular. I'm not making Angular again. I'm saying this again. Angular, attaching it to Express is more complex, especially when you work on a custom app like a survey app, one of these apps that I've asked you to build. It's more complex because you're building it from scratch. I haven't given you examples of a survey app or a brackets app or an incident management app. There's no examples of that I'm giving you. This is a custom app you're building. And if you tie Angular to the front end, it's an extra piece of complexity. Now, it's okay if you have 2 or more people on it. You're good, right? If you're working it alone, it's a challenge, right? Because it's just extra testing. It's not the complexity in terms of can you do it. It's not about that. It's just testing time, right? It's testing time. Like I'll tell you right now, the app that I just showed you, right? It took about 5 hours of testing, right? When I was doing it, right? So, not because of anything else, because I made some changes, right, to the original app that I showed you before. Okay. Let's kind of minimize this thing, and we'll come back to it. Well, again, the rubric for it in terms of mark spread and all that's down here. So it's a little lighter. The last one you did for authentication was 50 marks, which is worth 10%. This one is worth 40 marks, a little bit lighter in terms of functionality. It's also worth 10%. So I'm trying to make it so that, for the same, it's weighted the same, but it's probably a little bit easier than the authentication piece. The authentication piece was probably the hardest one, I think, that you probably had so far. With everything, with CRUD and everything together, it probably might have been one of the hardest ones you've kind of put together up until today. Okay. So again, the to-do list. So when I say it's like I got another view here, each of these to-dos, if I was to put in, here's one thing I got to show you. If I go here and I put in to-dos, right? Like I go to-dos, right? I get this. Yeah. JSON, yeah, right? Because the way we're going to connect our back end to the front end is we're going to create the back end. We're going to use the back end as a REST API, right? That's the best way to do it. So think about this. I got a REST API on the back end, which means it can connect to any front end. Further than that, the front end can connect to any REST API on the back end, right? So right now I'm using Angular and the mean stack, but I could use Angular, my to-do list, and on the back end, I can use something like, ASP.NET, right? I don't have to use the mean stack with a REST API. On the other side, if I use a REST API, I can use Angular as a front end for my to-do list, or I can use Backbone or Knockout or something else, right? If I don't like Angular for whatever reason, right? So that's what this does. It serves up. Now, you can't get to this unless you're logged in, believe it or not. So you might say, well, that's kind of insecure, Tom, because I can see the, my JSON. Who cares? At the end of the day, you have to know where to go, right? And this is exactly what you get anywhere in your to-do list if you were logged in. So it's just another view of your to-do list. Can't mess around with this. The only thing that you see that if I was going to do it differerently is to create a separate document for each user. Right now I can see Aaron's to-dos as well. That's one thing that I don't like, right? Because I can see Aaron's to-dos as well as my own, right? Remember, it's one big document that I filter, right? Let's go back. So if I go to this, the list view, and if I want to go to see a detail view, so to do detail view, and it's called to do details. Let's go back to this. I'll show you what it looks like. I've put it in in its own. I put it in its own views area under to-dos. There's an index.ejs, which is to-dos. I'm using templating, and I'm to do details.html, it's going to take me to this if things go well. Now, again, I haven't built this out just because I don't have the time. So if I go to do details, right? And if I press enter, I should get a not found, right? Because there is no to do details, right? And the reason for that is because even though I'm looking for to do details.html from here, right? This list right here is actually showing me to do list. And the way I'm getting to that is through this link up here, to do list. There is no to do details, right? And I also have to get to it. The only way I can get to that if I built a button somehow to transport me there, like, you know, a kind of a further update. When I click my update, instead of updating here, right, as an example, I can remove it or cancel. But if I click this update button should take me, or edit, some kind of edit, another button that I'm missing here, should take me to the other view, right? And maybe if you have time today, I'll modify this view so we can see that edit and I can get to my details view. All right, let's get back to this thing, and because I'm just kind of showing you a preview of what you're going to build out today, if we can get to it. So remember what we started with. Last time we built this out when we were talking about Angular, we're talking about Express and authentication. We built this authentication piece. I'm just going to minimize this stuff so we don't kill it. I built this authentication piece called, when we did it in lesson 8, if I'm not wrong, when we got together, right? So let's take a look at lesson 8. And by the way, if you don't know where it is, if you want to follow along, you can always go to GitHub and Georgian College. And if you look at COMP2068 lesson 8 for you guys, which is a couple weeks back, right? You can see that we built out a kind of authentication piece where you have a user model, right? This is the one that we had. We built this user model to log in. And through this user model, we can authenticate using these different views, right? So we have a login view and all this stuff. And this is the same view that a lot of you used for your assignment number 2, right? You kind of modeled it after this, took some of my views and slapped them into your assignment number 2. I saw some of them, I was looking at them, right? And we use this one, right? But the structure is wrong, right? Let me show you what the structure looks like. So I'm gonna go back to, you know, because if we want to compartmentalize it with Angular and the backend Express, we have to do so with another approach, right? And the reason why is because, and I called mine pass auth. That was my, you know, the view that I use. Notice how pass auth, which is your lesson 8, right? It has, you know, config, models, your node modules, all that stuff on the outside with routes and everything else in the server.js. And then you have a views folder. Everything is exposed on the root, right? But now what we want to do is we want to create almost like a front end, back end, right? So I got to take this stuff that we built last time, and I got to hide it inside of another folder, which means I have to redo some of my pathing, right? And the reason why I'm doing that is because it makes sense that I want to separate like my server views from all my public front end views that I'm going to use with Angular, right? So I need to rework this thing. So I would ask you to go back to that lesson 8 for a second, where we're going to start off, and I'm going to talk about Angular as well. But we need to rework it so that we get to that so it looks like this. This is the new structure that we're going to make. So I want you to take a few minutes to do that on your own. So go back to lesson 8. This is your little exercise right now, right? So, and you can get that through GitHub. So go up on GitHub. Come on, GitHub. I want you to do this, and I'm going to give you a few minutes to take care of this, right? GitHub.com/Georgian College and /lesson 8. Let me just go back there and I'll show you where it is again. If I go GitHub, Georgian College, and if I go COMP2068 lesson 8, well, that's the wrong one. How about the COMP2068 lesson 8? This one. This is the link right here. So if you go there and pull this one down, right? If you don't have it already, if you got rid of it, this is the one I want you to start with. I want you to take this and reorganize all this stuff except for app.js inside of a folder called server. Go. I'm going to give you a few minutes. So all this stuff here, see config, models, your public folder should be separate. Okay, leave public alone. Like you have your public folder, that's separate. But the rest, config, models, routes, views, and your server.js file should be all inside of a of a server folder. Right? So just encapsulate, just put them inside the server folder and make your Express app work. All right. So you need to do some repathing right now. So go ahead. I'll give you a few minutes to do that, and I'll come around and help you out. So we're going to take a little bit of a different format, different approach today. And I'm going to stop recording for this, so that way we can get that done.